Hello everyone, welcome to Geopolitical Trends. My name is David Oualaalou. So good to be with you as always. Sweden is already going against what NATO wants. In this video, I am gonna provide you some insights that we have not heard about here yet. And this pertains to why NATO and Sweden are locking horns as we speak. But before I jump into this, I want to talk briefly about some admin stuff here. I intend to do a live stream on the first week of December. Just let me know if you guys interested in a specific topic. I have not decided on any topic yet, but if there is something you would like me to address, I'll be happy to consider that one. But I also want to extend my thanks to two of my viewers, is Joel Urate, I hope I pronounce it correctly, and Gordon Nash. I want to say thank you for your super sticker. It means a lot. And to all of you, I say thank you for your support. So let's dive into this because it's a very, very interesting. So here's the thing. You will be hearing soon that Sweden plans to declare nuclear weapons cannot, and I repeat this, nuclear weapons cannot be stationed on its territory when the country join NATO alliance. Because remember, they just submit their application, but it has not been approved yet. And this is according to their foreign minister. His argument to the news agency TT, which is, by the way, one of the oldest media outlets in Sweden, it goes back to 1920, believe it or not. So he stated that his country, Sweden, wants to follow in the footsteps of its other Nordic states like Norway, Denmark, and Finland. And I'm going to provide you insights as to what those three countries have decided to do. So, as you all know, and I am sure you are aware, that Sweden and Finland have applied to join NATO. Now, let me just say this. Have they applied or have been pressured to apply? So, I'll let you reach that conclusion yourself. But of course, we'll go with it as it is. Applied to NATO earlier this year, following the start of the conflict in Ukraine. So far, the application has been ratified, and I repeat, this has been ratified by about 28 of the NATO's 30 members, which means 2 members have not. Well, I do know one of them for sure is Turkey, has not given its approval. And given the recent bombing that took place in Istanbul, in the capital, I don't think so. Things gonna go well for Sweden. But that won't matter because that way I'm not here to talk about this one. So just before I proceed again, if this is your first time watching this video, please make sure to subscribe and smash that like button, and also do not forget while at it to hit the notification button so you will be notified every time I upload a new video. So here's the thing. The Sweden Supreme Commander, his name is General Mikael Biden. You can pronounce it as Biden too, but Biden, B-Y-D-E-N. So raised eyebrows this month. And why is this? It's because he recommended that the government, which is the new one now in Sweden, should not insert any red lines in the final negotiations with NATO. That is, of course, raising eyebrows. What is he referring to? Well, his red lines, he said that the new government shouldn't have with NATO pertains to, for example, a complete ban against permanent alliance bases or nuclear weapons on Swedish soil. Basically, in a simple language, the general wants to have NATO's nuclear weapons on Swedish territory and wants to have NATO's bases on Swedish territory. Well, you can't just read between the lines. The general has been pressured to issue those statements. There are a lot of dynamics, by the way, guys, just to FYI. as I said, as one who worked in the, when it comes down to global affairs and my years in Washington, D.C. and the military and so forth, certain dynamics, certain statements by generals and so forth, those don't happen in a vacuum. There is always an objective and a motive for why certain things are said the way they are. So this is no different. General Biden, basically, he's been told or ordered to issue those kind of statements. And that's what he was referring to here. However, he got a pushback by none other than the foreign minister, the current one in Sweden. His name is Tobias Billström. And Billström said basically flat out that Sweden will not allow nuclear weapon on its territory. Sweden will join Denmark and Norway in unilaterally declaring that it will not allow nuclear weapons in Sweden. That was his arguments for this, you know. There are those who say, well, it is still a long-term moderate party position because what's his name? Billström belongs to the party, the moderate party that just won the elections, by the way. So, and he said, and let me get you a quote here, guys, because he said this specifically during his interview with the TT news outlet. He said, and I quote, "We have never intended to change the conditions for the application submitted by the previous government." End of quote. You can read between the lines because the previous government under Magdalena, you know, she kind of bowed to the pressure from NATO and from the US, of course, because anytime you say NATO, of course, it's the US. This government's saying no, and they are not going to depart from their principle as far as not allowing nuclear weapons on Swedish soil. So basically, because the moderate party won the election, as I mentioned earlier, they won this election in September, general elections. Magdalena lost. You know, basically what came with that victory of the moderate party is the ending of an 8-year reign of a social democratic rule in Sweden. It was over. That's no different than what happened in Italy, if I am not mistaken. So, well, because the rule under the 8 years that was under Magdalena Andersson, who's, by the way, she was an economist by trade. I looked at her background, an economist by trade who has served as a leader of the opposition party since October 2022, and the leader of the Swedish Social Democrats Party since 2021. It's a clear indication now where the tensions are between NATO and Sweden and why that is, which I will tell you in a second also. So here's one thing I want you to just put within the context of all this, is that Sweden was hell-bent to get NATO membership, but with the victory now of the Ulf Kristersson, well, Ulf Kristersson is the new PM, Prime Minister. Under his rule now, things are quite different. Now that the victory of the Swedish right-wing parties is in the most general elections is in itself a mandate of the Swedish people now. So Ulf Kristersson is now in charge of the country's administration, and he is doing everything in his power to show the West that he rejects the Western narrative to provoke Russia. I can see the arguments, of course, when way back when Magdalena approved that we need to join NATO, I was shaking my head. Here is why. Because Sweden, and Finland for that matter, have lived for almost 50 years in peace with Russia. Even at the height of the Cold War, they never had to worry about any issues with Soviet Union back then or with Russia after the disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1991. So That's why I was shaking my head. And I figured, well, this might not work for Sweden. Otherwise, they will be shooting themselves in the foot. Or in their foot, that is. So here's a recent example of all this. Is that what is not known to many is that NATO and the United States is considering locking horns with Russia over nuclear weapons. This is why NATO wanted to have nuclear weapons on Swedish soil and Finland as well, because they're close proximity to Russia. So NATO, as we speak, is working tirelessly to possession those nukes as quickly as possible close to Russia. Ain't gonna happen, because you got now all the Nordic states, Norway, Denmark, Finland, and now Sweden. They're saying no. We don't want nuclear weapons. Poland was so weak, because Poland is politically weak to just bow to the pressures from the West and say, sure, bring in your nuclear weapons on our territory. Well, Poland, and I am sure they do realize this, is that by putting those weapons there, you become the first target. That's how I didn't quite understand the logic of the Polish president Andrzej Duda decision to go with such things. But that's his decision anyway. So Sweden has already decided to keep itself aside from all this circus, basically, because they realized even if we become a member of NATO, we're not going to allow nuclear weapons to be here or bases, because that's what NATO is going to do. So, and even in the Western media, and believe it or not, I did find one article by Reuters, basically stated that Sweden has denied stationing NATO's nuclear weapons on its soil, reportedly. So Sweden planned to declare this. That's what I said at the beginning. They are planning to declare this officially, because with something like this, once it becomes official, then that's it. It's for the whole world to know. But this doesn't go just the easy way or the peaceful way for Sweden, because here is what just happened at the moment they declare this. What happened? It was a retaliation against Sweden already. So what am I talking about? Just after Sweden's announcement, Sweden's largest nuclear reactor got sabotaged. Yeah, don't be surprised. In unwanted circumstances, Firstly, Sweden's largest nuclear reactor was disconnected from the national grid after a fault in one of the turbines. Yeah, you can read between the lines. All of a sudden this mistake happened, or this faulty line on the turbine happened right after they issued a statement that they would not allow any nuclear weapons from NATO on their territory. Here's the second part to all this. Later on, Germany started to snag Sweden's now nuclear ambitions, because Germany has no stand-in. Germany is like puppet. Germany, you press on it, they'll do whatever you want them to do. When I say you, I'm referring to United States, basically. That's what it is. So with Germany doing this, you look at where their economy is and how pathetic that their Chancellor Olaf Scholz couldn't think for the welfare of their people. And it makes you wonder, what's wrong with those leaders? What's wrong with the whole Western leadership? And I might have an answer to that. And the answer is, Western leadership, there is a deficiency in leadership. There are no leaders in the West anymore. So here is the thing. What's his name? Christensen, the prime minister, reversed the previous government, Magdalena's government's policy of switching entirely to renewable energy when his new administration was inaugurated in Stockholm. He said it flat out. So his government also announced the construction of more nuclear reactors. You all see where this is going, right? So even the state-owned energy corporation, which is called, let me get the name here, Vattenfall, was ordered by the new administration to prepare for the building of additional reactors and look into the possibility of restarting old nuclear reactors like the ones in Ringhals, Unit 1 and Unit 2. And this is no different than what Germany is doing. Germany is restarting its nuclear power plants that shut down 2 years ago or so. France is doing the same. So what happened to the climate change? Which is another farce, if I may use the term. So amazing how they can really, when I say they, the elite, whatever you want to call them, they control the masses through some psychological approach. Usually in the military, as a former military myself, we all used psyops. Well, we used them in a military setting, but now you can apply that to civilians. Yeah, and that's exactly what is happening. Climate change and all this, it's just another hype. Anyway, so here's my conclusion for you. Before I share it with you, because I want you to put this within the context, the historical context. So to look at this issue from the historical context, you have to go beyond the Baltic region and up to the Nordic states, particularly Finland and Sweden. Why is that? These countries and Russia have a long history. Though hostility ceased after World War II, the last military conflict between Russia and Sweden ended, get this guys, in 1809. Let me repeat this. The last military conflict between Russia and Sweden ended in 1809. So following the conflict, Sweden declared permanent neutrality. With Denmark and Norway, Russia has had friendly relations for centuries, except for the Cold War era tensions. So, and speaking of Norway, it finds itself in delicate position now whether to accept the US and NATO allies' proposal to host a nuclear weapon. Well, guess what? Their decision is no. They don't want to host sensors or anti-ballistic missile systems or any nuclear weapons from NATO on its territory. Surprisingly, the Norwegian government, according to a local newspaper, titled Class, let me get the name of the paper here. It's called Class Kempen, refused to accept the US and NATO offer. And I remember when I was in Helsinki, that was way back a few decades ago, the Finnish people, based at least what I observed in Helsinki, they were laid back. They didn't have to worry about Russia next door and all. Everything was fine. And this is why you have to put this within the historical context. So here's my question for you for today. Do you think Sweden should withdraw its application from NATO? Let me repeat. Do you think Sweden should withdraw its application from NATO? Let me know what you think. I would love to read your comments. As always, guys, remember, geopolitics impact your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time. Bye-bye.